Andrew, how are you? I'm fine.
All right. Do you want to see me?
I'd love to.
All right. Hang on.
I love the fact that you're prepared to go on camera. There's so many who don't.
Look, I'm too bloody old and too bloody ugly to worry about that now.
Oh, yeah. I don't find you ugly. I think you're beautiful.
No, the ugliness creates character. Character is no. I've had a bit of fun today. I'm
You
writing a bit of.
go on.
I'm writing a. I'm writing a parody.
Fantastic.
Remember the tune, "The Teddy Bear's Picnic"?
Yes.
Well, today, on the media, we were informed that Melburnians are not permitted to go to the beach. It's a lovely warm day, but don't you go to the beach. So I thought, yeah, I can do a parody on that. Don't go down to the beach today.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I thought you meant a whole play. You need to write a play or a movie script.
No.
You'd be
There,
great.
I could advise, but there are people far more competent in that area than I. So, I
It
could just
is.
stand there and say, "Well, this is what happened. You write it. You explain it. You put in the characters." I'm not much good at that. I'm good at writing me police reports and other things like that, but my creativity is rather low.
I think that you talk yourself down a bit there because one thing that I've noticed about your work, and I've really only seen a little smidgen of it over the decades, but your ability to intuit things ahead of others, or even, you know, to be able to put pieces together based on small clues is better than anybody else I know of. But I mean, I'm not in the detective field or anything.
Well, neither was I. That's just normal general duties work. Um, there was a name years ago for the detectives or the CIB, and many people in uniform called them the rusty rifles.
Why?
Rusty rifles don't shoot. They don't work.
Oh, right. As in they don't shoot. They won't use their
No,
guns.
no, no. The rusty rifles they don't work.
Oh, they don't do
So
anything.
the CIB, now I've got it. Now I can relax. I can let other people do the hard work, or I'll be cunning and stupid, and I'll write people up for crimes, but I won't go out and actually prove the fact, or. And you'll find that there's been a lot of people stating the fact that the police simply set them up. They didn't go out and prove anything. The CIB set them up, and sometimes the setups are rather good. And then when you get a good policeman coming along, he's he's doing well, and then all of a sudden he runs into the work of a lazy cop, and it stuffs his whole case right up.
Yes. Yeah, there must be so much of the job is involved in covering shit up.
Oh yes. You know the writer. I think he writes for the Age. John Sylvester.
No, I don't. I'm being
Um,
honest with you.
he and Andrew Rule wrote the Underbelly books.
Ah, right.
Right. Well, John Sylvester's father was what was his first name? I knew him as a detective senior sergeant at Northgate,
Ah,
and on promotion he became a detective inspector at Russell Street. So he grabbed a squad of blokes and he went round and he closed every sly grog place in Melbourne that he was aware of. And all the CIB well, I screamed because I said, where are we going to get our information and all? And Sylvester said, well, you're just going to have to get off your ass and start working, aren't you? You what? What was his first name? It doesn't matter. So, yeah, but a very, very competent and good policeman. There were a lot of them back in the middle 60s.
So his son became a writer and ended up writing Underbelly. That's interesting.
Yes. Well, he and Andrew ruled. But when you have a look at the Underbelly, there's a lot of things that they don't quite mention.
I'm sure.
A little thing called or dirty tricks that they just never happened.
Yes, of course, it's terrible propaganda.
No, but he's done some very good work when he was having a look at he did excellent how to say it coverage of the Pell the Pell trials and how they were so far wrong it wasn't funny.
Pell's off now, isn't he? He got let off in the end.
He was never guilty.
Was he?
Oh, good heavens above, no.
Not guilty. George Pell.
Didn't. Look, no matter how much people dislike the Catholic Church, the left are far more insidious. And the whole case on Pell was invented. And the story about the attack at St Paul's Cathedral was taken straight out of a script from the Rolling Stone magazine that back in about September 2014. Oh dear. So you then got, what was that, the ABC writer, what was that? Doesn't matter. Very, very leftist, very, very Marxist, and always they couldn't be bothered using the truth or anything like that. And that's one of the
Andrew, just 1 second. You think you might have a few blind spots there? I mean, these guys are priests. They hang out with other pedophiles. They cover up for other pedophiles.
I beg your pardon? Are you trying to make the priests are any worse than the police?
No, actually, I've found pedophilia across the board. And you know, they say 1 in 2 children or 1 in 4 children is affected by pedophilia at some stage. So I know it's not just the politicians and the priests or the police. I know it's in every street, in every country.
Yes.
There are a lot of them. When I think back over my own childhood, the amount of people I had to run away from was astounding. But at least I knew to run away when I think about it, you know.
Yes, you soon learn. But then again, how old were you when you still really started becoming interested in sexuality?
Well, all different ages in different ways and different stages.
Yes.
But are you suggesting that, it's not, I hope you're not suggesting that children encourage it.
Lovely saying that it takes 2 to tango.
Andrew, you cannot speak about a child like that. A child doesn't know what they're doing and can be easily manipulated.
What is a child?
Pardon?
What is a child?
A child is a person who isn't of adult age yet.
What is adult age?
I'd say anything after 14, 15, 16.
So you're getting onto teenagers. How old?
You think a baby is people are having sex with babies? That's too young, isn't it?
Now that's called pedophilia.
Yeah, well, 3-year-olds is pedophilia, 13-year-olds is pedophilia. Even if the
Not
child encourages it, even if the child begs, it is up to you as an adult to be able to say, no, because I love you, I'm not going to give you
no.
what you want.
You don't say no because I love you. You say no because it's not quite right.
It's not appropriate, of course.
Thank you very much. How old was the youngest soldier in the British Army who died in the First World War?
Probably
I'll give you a clue.
11.
He's 13.
Yeah, right.
Do you know why he joined the British Army?
To get away from being buggered somewhere else?
No. He wanted a pair of boots.
And that's how they get
A lot of
everyone
people,
money.
a lot of people forget the poverty in so many parts of Europe in those days.
Look, Andrew, what about the article you sent me today about the Matrix? We all turn into
What's,
Agent Smith because we're all chasing dollars. Whoever's got a mortgage to pay, whoever's got a job to hold down, a social position to hold.
no, they're a slave. They're a slave. It's as simple as that.
But
You
almost
get a mortgage.
everybody is enslaved by their desire for money and their inability to create that money on their own.
It's not a desire for money. It's the need for money.
Yeah.
Right? How do you think the Highlanders of Scotland were cleansed after the 1745?
I have no idea.
Well, there's a thing called the Industrial Revolution, and they started making mills in places like Glasgow, and they needed fodder for the mills. But it's as simple as it's not a desire for money. It's a desire or a need for survival.
Yes.
Now, my generation is extremely lucky because before my generation there was a lot of poverty, and I'm now seeing my children going into poverty, and it's getting with this pandemic that's on now. The next generation of children is going to be in more strife and peril.
They're going to be emotionally retarded after all of this mask wearing, 6-foot distancing bullshit.
That's an understatement.
Yes.
They will, but it's definitely scarred. Very similar to what happens to a lot of the African children grow up in times of famine. The body doesn't quite mature properly. It doesn't get quite. So it's not just the body and muscles that don't develop. It's also the brain. And we will see things like that. And then they go to school with a leftist agenda, which is absolutely terrible. Doesn't teach them anything. Doesn't give them any, how to say, self-esteem. Doesn't teach them quality of history. Oh, it's amazing. Anyway, I sent you a couple of little articles the other day in regard to professional witnesses.
Very interesting, yes. Michael Chosadowski, Kevin Barrett, is that his name? I have been sus on those guys for 10 years. But they do put out a lot of good info, you know?
Of course, but then when the shit hits the fan, Michael Chosadowski became a gatekeeper for Israel.
Yes, I see anybody who's that promoted, that organised, that well known and that well funded is always either willingly or unwillingly being used. And they're either a useful idiot, like I've found myself to be almost my whole last 10 years, or they are, agents and they know what they're doing and they know they're consciously in on it.
I'm trying to think of the another American writer who did on 9/11. I've got his book somewhere. And he wrote about Julian Assange. No, first of all, he wrote about Edward Snowden and said, be very careful. Edward Snowden got a lot of publicity in the press, which means the press wanted us to know about him.
Yeah.
Why?
Exactly. Because he's working for them.
Makes a lot of media think in regard to Julian Assange, the Australian.
Yeah.
Why?
And Julian Assange was bailed out by Jemima Khan, Rothschild money. I mean, I don't know. I don't even want to know, but I can't believe Julian Assange, who oversaw the WikiLeaks information being leaked, he at no stage in the last 20 years has he said that 9/11 was done by anybody other than the official story. How useless is that?
No, that's one of his most admired persons was Benjamin Netanyahu. And believe me, Julian is a Jew. So he permitted that, but that just puts an understanding on his character.
I never trust anyone who's an ex-police person or ex-military. But I do like to talk to you. And, I have noticed other people like Judy Mikovits, who you sent me the Plandemic 2 video.
Oh, yeah.
She's a fantastic doctor, and I love her spirit. And I just hope so much that she is as truthful with integrity like she says. Because so many people that I have loved over the years have turned out to be gatekeepers or agents in place to missteer the narrative.
Do you know Nick Hollerstrom from London?
Yes.
Terror on the... I sent him a couple of things I wrote on it that, my understanding, and he thought they'd be used and he put them up. And then he started asking me about Rachel North, who is a player, and it became extremely obvious very quickly that she was an intelligence person.
I don't know her.
You won't, not unless you've done. But Nick Hollerstrom was having problems with her, and he then got information from another female, it doesn't matter her name, and she told Nick a few little more things, including the name of the person who was supposedly raped her. And I told Nick two things, which frightened him. I said, well, first of all, to get the information on Rachel North from the other female, they're working as a team. Rachel North's a bad cop. The other girl, Felicity, whatever her name was the good cop. But they're working as a team because otherwise she would not have known or given you the name of the supposed Jamaican who raped her, who had been charged, convicted, and was locked up. So I told Nick, why don't you go down to the prison where he's supposedly locked up and see if you can visit him. If you can visit him, you know that he's there. If you can't visit him, you will not know that he's there. Whether he's there or not, you can't prove it. And I said, but more, then I said, why don't you check out records to see if he's been deported? And he did. And he came back and said, how did you know that? Understand? It's simple logic. The police can't, our intelligent people can't use an actual character that you can talk to. So they have to ensure that whoever they use, you cannot talk to them. So the person existed, if he was a Jamaican, then they had him shipped back to Jamaica.
Okay. Can I ask you about how you ended up connecting Keith Noble, the writer of the book about Martin Bryant, that recently, I think it was released in 2016 or 2014, 2013. How did you
Well,
connect him with Joe Viles and the other Eliases?
Dr. Keith Allen Noble, when he first introduced himself to me, told me a lie. He should not have done that.
What kind of lie?
He said
Yeah.
that he knew Raymond Hoser, who's a South African Jew who's written a few books on called Smuggled 1 and 2 and Victoria Police Corruption. I've known Raymond Hoser since before 1998, and he wrote an article in regard to my missing who I believed at the time was murdered, my twin brother. I didn't like his language, but I wasn't the one writing it. Do you understand?
Yes.
His language is different to mine. But I've spoken to him, a very honest person. He's into snakes and things like that as a hobby. But anyway, I asked Keith Allen Noble if he read the books, who wrote the books.
Who wrote
Simple
which?
question.
Sorry, that was difficult to hear. You asked Keith Allen Noble who wrote what books.
He had a book or two books written by Raymond Hoser on Victoria Police corruption.
Okay.
I asked him who wrote the foreword. The first book, the foreword, was written by Graham Campbell, the former ALP for Parliament for Kalgoorlie. The second one I wrote.
Okay. So
he
didn't know that you knew Raymond Hoser.
Oh, he knew I knew Raymond Hoser, but he didn't know how much I knew him.
Okay.
So he said, Raymond Hoser said he hadn't.
Okay, so that made Keith a liar, and then did you challenge him on that afterwards, or have?
No, you don't challenge him on that. That's the lie. You now start having a look at what he's doing. Right? And you have a look at this 700-page tome. Suppose it's not written by Dr. Keith Allen Noble. He's grabbed works by other people and put them together and then added his comments to. So that's not writing a book.
Yeah.
And then he went on to part of the book, if you read it, he states one thing about police in South Australia taking Aboriginals who were, the police must have found to be obnoxious or a pest, and dumping them over the cliff in the Great Australian Bight. That's an extreme left view, and it's also not a proper story. It's a lie. It's a fairy tale.
Where did he write that, or where did you hear that?
No, I read it in his book. When I first got it, I was getting copies of it.
I read his book. I don't remember that.
Well, I found that he must have given me a different copy to what he gave you. It wouldn't surprise me.
Like you said, it's 700 pages, and maybe some of it escaped me. I don't know. But anyway, I almost interviewed him a few years ago, and then I got scared off because I thought, I don't want to speak to somebody.
Well, you missed out on your opportunity.
Pardon?
You missed out on your opportunity. He passed away last year, in about December.
Really?
He stopped writing on the safer side, yes.
But does that mean he's passed away? Because I think... I
believe so. I couldn't see him vegetating in an aged care facility.
No, but he might have gone quiet. He might be doing another Elias.
No. He took great enjoyment of playing the various roles that he played, and he was quite good at many of them. So
Well,
no, he's passed away. You'll find that he's passed away. He, as I said, his brother-in-arms, Johann Zoberbeek, passed away a couple of years ago, and his liaison officer, Mary Maxwell, has gone back to America.
so you think Mary Maxwell was a double? I know she's a barrister, so that always makes me suspicious. But and she was very nice to me at first until she found out that I was that I had certain beliefs. And then she sort of had to get rid of me very quickly, but she thought that I was going to be fun to play with, and I thought she was going to be fun to play with because she has such a great sense of humour. And she's written many great articles. She speaks very highly of you in most of her articles that I know of. But I've heard that you two don't speak anymore.
She's gone to America.
But you can still speak.
Me here at least twice in my home. She'd come round to John to see me. The first I met her, about 2001, 2002, I got an email or something from her. She was stopping off at the Tullamarine Airport. Could I meet her there and give her a copy of my CD? And I did. And she offered to pay. She offered to pay for my parking fine. And I said, no, that's fine. You can have that. Never spoke to me again. So she got my work. Why did she get my? She was so interested. I didn't ask me for it. And I never heard a thing about it after that. And she said, "Oh, she didn't trust me." All right. Well, she's entitled to that right.
Yes,
you understand?
Know. Yes, of course.
She came back, and she was working with Dee McLaughlin, who was, I think, a gumshoe news in South Melbourne somewhere. Yeah. And Terry Schultz, the barrister from Sydney, described her as a loose cannon, and she was a little bit.
Mary or Dee?
No, Mary Maxwell. He described
She's
Mary Maxwell
loose
as
cannon, all right. Yeah. She makes me look wild.
I didn't have that much to do with her. I've always been nice and polite to her. And you have to be with people. You understand?
Yes. I find that funny that you say she took your CD and then never followed up with you, but yet she wrote glowingly about you in many of her Gumshoe articles. Well, she never contacted you, but you said she came to your house?
Yeah, for 10 years, totally ignored me. And then the McLaughlin stuff, and she came round to see me, and so forth and so on. So, yes, she perhaps thought, well, yes, she decided sort of thing that I was a little bit before my time.
And but, you also, you said she was working with someone. Who was that?
Well, I'm trying to understand what a little old lady who ended up studying law after her husband passed away, stuck in South Australia. She went back to America for a little while after Donald Trump won office, and then came back and then was gone again. And I'm trying to understand what she was doing in South Australia and why she was there and what was going on. And the only thing I can come up with is that she would be the liaison officer for Hans Overbeek.
She sort of accuses him in one of her articles.
Oh, she can accuse him as much as she likes. No one's going to prosecute him.
Yes.
Not now.
Yeah.
But again, Johann Overbeek, you see, if you, my father said, you always tell the truth. It's a lot easier to remember the truth than it is to remember a lie. You'll always get caught out, even if it's 20 years later. You'll still get caught out. You understand?
Absolutely. Align with the truth and you don't have anything to remember.
Yeah, or you can remember it, but you don't have to remember the specifics of the lie. So, yes, it gets... yeah. You don't always have the absolute proof, but quite often there's a prima facie case you can look at. And from there, you work out. And I much prefer the prima facie than the required solicitors. Absolutely, you must prove beyond reasonable doubt. Yeah. Can I tell you a funny little story?
Yes, please do.
In September, I'm at Fitzroy, and I get seconded to the Russell Street crime cars as a driver for a week. I'm working. The gentleman in charge is Rex Top, an extremely competent and capable detective. We're working the 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. shift. So one night about 10 p.m. we're walking down Lygon Street. And there's a little Italian shop on the right, and there's an old bloke sitting out there on his stool with his walking cane beside him, and Rick Top says, "You see that bloke there?" I said, "Yes." He says, "That's the man who shot George Harrison." George Harrison was a standover merchant from the painters and dockers back in the early 60s, who somebody shot and killed with a shotgun. And there were quite a few people standing around it. They even got covered with some of the blood and guts. But not one of them saw anything. You understand?
No, they were all involved.
No, well, they're all crims. They're not going to tell the police anything. 20 years later, Rick Top walked down. There's the man that shot George Harrison. Everybody knew he shot him. Nobody was going to talk about it. You understand?
Yes.
You couldn't prove it. You couldn't take it to court and get a conviction, but everybody knew.
Yes, they say it's not what you know, it's what you can prove in this world.
Oh, not necessarily. We all know that the world goes round.
We all know that what?
Right? The world goes round.
Do we?
Yes. We all know it. How many of us can prove it?
There's no evidence that the world goes round. I've been searching for the last 5 years. There's no natural scientific evidence for it. There's just pseudoscience.
Right. Oh, no. Look, there was I'm told he's Greek, a gentleman back before Christ, living in Arabia, some part of northern part of Africa, who was able to prove that the world was round.
You're not going to say Eratosthenes, are you?
I don't know his name. I learned it as a kid in
See,
primary
you
school.
learn this stuff as a kid and you take it on and you don't really look at it. And actually what you need to do as an adult is re-look. I dare you, re-look at Eratosthenes and what he supposedly proved about the earth being round. Because he put a stick in the ground in one place, had a friend with a stick in the ground at the other place, looked at the sun angles. Pardon?
His servant.
Looked at the sun angles and said that the sun and said that this proved that the earth is curved, based on the assumption that the sun is 90 odd million miles away. If the sun was, say, 30,000 miles away, or some other distance that's not 90 million miles, then that doesn't prove that the Earth's surface is curved. If the sun was much closer, which is something we haven't yet been able to really prove, we're just told pseudoscience, you know. Like the first guy says that the sun's 3 million miles away, and then 100 years later, it's 93 million miles away. This is all really amazing stuff, Andrew. I totally encourage us all to go into natural science. That's all it requires. only go with what we can prove naturally, which is observable, testable, shareable information, rather than things that have been passed down by the high priests of science like Neil deGrasse Tyson, or Carl Sagan is more respected, or their forefathers, all the way back. They're all Freemasons. Can you believe it? Of course you can.
Yeah.
Right back to Pythagoras.
Pythagoras was not a Freemason.
Oh, well,
Freemason.
Freemasons have claimed him as one. The Freemasons have claimed him as one of the first Freemasons. Was it Pythagoras? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so let's not get off on that. Pardon?
Pythagoras had no say in the matter. He was already dead. Please.
I don't know about that. Let's get on to crisis actors. Get back onto crisis actors, because this is such a fascinating subject. And you were one of the first people to pick apart. Well, see, like, I just want people out there in the real world listening to this to know that for all I know, you could be still operating for our masters. I could be operating for our masters. I could be an undercover agent. You could, whatever. But what we can do is share information, and over 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we can say, well, nothing that Andrew's told me has been proven untrue so far, so I trust him. And I accept that people can be wrong. Like, I don't believe the same things now, or I don't know the same knowledge now that I knew 10 years ago. So everybody is always growing and evolving.
What actually happens with knowledge? You get information, and you make decisions on that, you know. But then later on, you'll get more information, better information.
Yes.
So you could go back and reassess your original assessment. You've got to reassess it and see, hang on, was I right there? Was I wrong?
Yeah.
Let's say I was 80% right, let's get rid of that 20% that was wrong.
It's interesting when you talk about Keith Noble lying to you very early on in the relationship, how that's such a big red flag, because it's the same for me. If somebody lies to me once, I pretty much don't want to use any of their information anymore.
Yes. And look, it's the other thing, being an old Wallacher policeman, you go to court, and, you know, I got to know a few magistrates, only a couple, and their thing was, if a policeman lied to you once, you could never trust him again.
Yes. Well, I feel the same way about anybody in the world.
We had a magistrate, I never spoke to him, at Fitzroy when I was first there in 1971. His nickname was Dismissal Smith. Now, I wonder why he had that nickname. Perhaps because he ran up to enough policemen at Fitzroy to know that they weren't particularly honest.
All right. See, this is what gives the game away, absolutely. Now, we're talking about crisis actors, something that made, Sandy Hook, 26 children were killed in 2012, December 14. And within hours, they're having interviews. I mean, literally within 24, 36 hours of the shootings, the slayings of 26 children, supposedly, they're doing interviews with parents who are laughing and smiling and remembering their little pooky, fun kid.
Go on to their role. That was an Eric Holder. Set up that one.
Yes, probably.
What was supposedly the murder weapon?
Yes, we spoke about this last week. It was the shotgun, which was in the boot of the car.
Bushmaster AR-15.
Oh, right.
Right, which was in the back of the black Honda sedan. Now, there's another thing that came out too. police, the initial police requested the information of a certain motor vehicle registration plate. And it came back, it belonged to a Beagle, so blah, 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 blah. But then when you have a look at the black Honda sedan on the back of the tow truck, it bore those registration number plates.
Yes. I remember seeing these things. So now what I want to ask you is, have you seen any crisis actors in your state of Victoria saying they've got COVID? Because there's one on the TV that got highlighted by some funny gents, and his name was Ahmed Hassan. And now this guy, I'm not joking, he had photos of himself on his Instagram meeting Prince Harry, sitting next to Daniel Andrews, standing next to, rubbing shoulders with Bill Shorten, and then the poor guy, he also had photos of him enjoying a first-class luxury flight to Canberra with politicians for some, because, you know, he's one of those young guys that's got some charities that he's working with. And then all of a sudden, he's also got COVID-19. He's in the hospital and he's giving them an interview on Channel 9 or Channel 7, telling them how bad COVID is and how you don't want it. And this guy's a complete bullshit artist, and you can see the rewards he's getting for his shilling for the government on his own freaking Instagram page. Once these young guys pointed it out, he took his Instagram and made it private because it was too damn obvious that he's a COVID-19 crisis actor. If you've got real people dying of it, why do you need to have crisis actors? If you really killed kids at Sandy Hook, why do you need to interview the crisis actors' parents? I do believe there are some events where people are really hurt and there is fake injuries. Like, I think Boston was like that. I think there was one real kind of bomb or a smoke bomb which maybe actually hurt some people, and there was another bomb which didn't hurt anyone, but there were a lot of fake victims laying around after. But this is how they screw us all from getting anywhere, is that there's so many lies mixed in.
There were two bombs at the Boston.
Yes.
Supposedly set by each of the two brothers. Unfortunately, there were crisis actors in both areas.
Right.
If there's crisis actors, then that would take the thing away from anyone who's possibly injured. So there can be no injury if they have to have crisis actors.
Well, it's remember the guy who they wheeled away in the wheelchair with both legs blown off, sitting upright.
He should have been dead.
Sitting upright for 8 minutes. They didn't even lift his little stumps up to stop the bleeding. The guy said he did a tourniquet. It was hilarious. It was so funny.
I showed one of the photographs to him, him lying down at the scene of the bomb blast.
Oh, ridiculous.
To my daughter.
Yes.
She's late teens at the time. And she studied fashion. And she had one look at his leg and said, that's a so-and-so. That leg, the thing there, is they use mannequins to attack mannequins with their attached arms and legs. She said, that's an attachment.
Yes. I'm so happy to hear that your daughter agreed.
No idea of what was. So,
I showed that photo to my parents, and they both looked at it and sort of looked at me and went, oh, you're just a conspiracy theorist. And I'm like, use your freaking eyes. That was the fakest photograph of that guy laying there on the ground, propped up on his elbows, 2 legs blown off, 2 other people right next to him not even balking. Oh, it was ridiculous.
And there's others. Look, there was one little old lady in a wheelchair who had injuries. I think might have been one shin, might have been on both. But the injuries were perpendicular.
I don't know what that means.
that if she'd been struck by shrapnel or whatever, then she had to be lying down because the shrapnel would travel in one direction. And for it to travel up, I think, and it should have, yes, totally impossible.
So you probably haven't seen this Victorian guy named Ahmed Hassan.
Remember a couple of years ago where they had this Danny Gagulopoulos or something driving the red Commodore through Melbourne.
Oh, that was the biggest load of bullshit ever. They said a baby flew 150 metres. Being
struck out from the pram. And that was viewed by our former police commissioner, Christine Nixon.
It might have been 150 feet. It was 150 feet.
But she immediately went and got on the phone and started speaking to the KBC. Later on, she said she also directed traffic and nobody disobeyed her. But there's plenty of policemen around there in uniform who could have done the same job. Christine Nixon, I think, is extreme left and was a very willing participant.
She was a participant. She was waiting on the sidewalk for that whole thing to go down, just like so many of the...
Wait there. That red Commodore was towed there and put there.
Right. Well, I have no idea what happened, but there's absolutely no footage of it going down Collins or Burke Street, whichever one it went down.
Going up Burke Street.
There's no CCTV camera footage of that baby flying.
It's taken from Swanston Street, including a couple of still photographs taken from the Melbourne Town Hall balcony.
Yes, and that's it. Then it stops. You don't see any of the main event.
Back to one of the video scenes of that, the vehicle actually slow down and move around a pedestrian that's fallen over.
Yeah, it's all absolute crap and bullshit, and it's so disgusting to see all the politicians.
On that particular, we then get on to the professional witness. Somebody supposedly rang the hospital where one of the females who were injured was, and then started telling the nurse there that it was all bullshit, it was all fake. So he was arrested, you see. Professional. The police and our government needed to stop anyone from checking up so the threat came out, if you start inquiring, if you start making, this, we will arrest you and we will charge you. So it stopped. And the amount of disinformation that came in was also rather interesting. And then we had the one 2 years later, exactly a week after, what's his name? Gagulopoulos. What's it? Danny? It doesn't matter. After his trial, then we had the other one with the sort of thing that was set alight in Burke Street, and the Italian restaurateur was stabbed to death.
Ah, that's right. Yeah, from the cafe.
And what's his name? Doesn't matter.
I can't remember. But the very famous.
The trolley man was ASIO. He had a sidekick with him. The trolley man used the trolley. His sidekick was using a chair to try to subdue this. What was it? His doesn't matter.
Was that some kind of mafia hit? Do you think, or?
No,
I have no idea.
The Somali gentleman had a schizophrenic attack. His parents would say sort of thing that he was having problems. He was believed he was being chased by little invisible men armed with spears. That's what do you call it? That's a psychosis. That's a definite sign that he's experiencing schizophrenia.
I know
all of it. My eldest son has suffered from schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia.
Well, then that's a genuine event. It's not a false flag hoax, is it?
Oh, no. Why do you think Daniel Andrews gave the Italian restaurateur a state funeral?
That's a good question.
Guilty conscience, I'm afraid.
It's like
But
when the Queen comes over for a funeral, or when John Howard and all the other guys turned up to the funerals. It's like it's half rubbing it in and it's half guilty conscience. I don't know.
well, when was the last time the Queen went to a funeral, either in Great Britain or in any of the Commonwealth countries?
Oh, I don't
She
know, but it's been a while.
Yes. No, she will forward her a comment and whatever. Um, I remember when what's his name died, the chieftain. He starred in the film. He was portrayed in the film The Longest Day, wearing his polo neck jumper and carrying his favourite elephant gun. Lord Lovat.
I don't know.
When Lord Lovat died, Sir Winston Churchill got up and said he was the gentlest man to ever slit a throat.
Mm.
Yes.
I hate thinking about what these guys get up to for fun and for kicks, because the stories that you hear are so damning.
Anyway, let's get on to Port Arthur.
Okay.
The first major witness that we got on the day, especially on the KBC, was Rob and Karen Atkins. And Karen is in a very heavy stage of pregnancy. And they start telling us everything that happened there, except for the most of the time they were shut up in the junior medical officer's cottage on the top floor for 3 hours. And they were filmed there. So how did they see it? How did they know what the gunman said when he was going in, when he spoke to another little girl, Rebecca McKenna? They only spoke to her. Why would they speak with her and then later on tell the press that he said, oh, there's not many Yanks here. There's not many
wasps.
There's not many, but there's quite a few wasps. And you think, how many Australians use the term wasps for wealthy Anglo-Saxon Protestants?
I've never heard it. Never heard it.
It's we don't use it. Right? So, that was interesting. And
so they were the ones that attributed that quote to Bryant.
Yes.
Right. See, I've looked into it, but it's such a long time and so many different people, and we need some independent somehow people who give a shit to look through and comb through all of this stuff.
No, well, all right. What you have to look at is that Port Arthur, much as was the same as Dunblane in Scotland, was designed for the removal of firearms.
Yes.
In Australia, the firearm situation, it was a state matter.
Yes.
The only part the government had control of was the importation of firearms and ammunition. Right? So it was, and that's why Barry Unsworth stated we'll never see uniform gun laws in Australia until there's a massacre in Tasmania.
In 1987.
Yes. You see, you get 87, we had Julian Knight with the Hodder Street Massacre.
So that's when Unsworth made his quote, you'll never get uniform gun laws in Australia.
Yes.
Until we see a massacre in Tasmania. He said that in 87, so 9 years before the event, a politician predicted it. Isn't that disgusting that these...
He stated it had to happen.
Yeah. Isn't that disgusting that politicians are so murderous and that they just look at these things as like events that they have to set up so that they can get their way?
Oh, and you mean with collateral damage?
Yes. Collateral damage. 55 people shot, 33 dead or whatever, 32 dead.
I think it was. Yeah. So, with Julian Knight was actually suffering a psychosis when he was committing the offence. And he was well aware of what he was doing. He thought he was shooting Martians.
Right.
And he was well aware that if the Martian police should arrive, he had put a cartridge in his top pocket to which to commit suicide. Except he lost it.
No, no.
Martian police, right? Who were the Martian police? Because the uniformed police were ordered not to go into, just seal off the area, keep out of it, we'll wait for the SOGs to arrive, all dressed in black. They were the Martian police.
Is he still in jail or is he dead?
Yeah, he's still in jail, he's done his time, but they won't let him out.
Is he in a mental hospital or in a normal jail?
Normal prison.
Wow.
And he's very well protected. Julian Knight studied law.
Yeah, he's intelligent from what I could gather.
Yes. So he studied law, and all the crimes go to him for legal advice. Nobody dare ever, do anything that could harm or frighten Julian, because they would jump on him. He's very well protected there. And I would also wonder too how he would fit in society if they let him out.
I wonder if he's got stories of being mind controlled.
No idea that he was ever mind controlled. He suffered from schizophrenia and he had a psychosis. But
and that might have been a natural part of his evolution, or it might have been the result of some kind of torture, like what we assume Martin Bryant must have gone through from his childhood onwards.
Schizophrenia. His mother said so, his sister said so, his doctor said so.
But I mean, there's thousands of cases of people.
He did not suffer from schizophrenia, because had he done so, he had to have a trial. A proper trial.
Yeah.
And he had to, right? And he had to plead not guilty, and they couldn't do that. The next person, in 1987, we had the second massacre at the Philatelic building in Queen Street. I think that was Frank Vickovich.
Yeah.
Frank Vickovich is going around on one of the floors, and he's given an M1 carbine. Now, he had to carry it in there in a bag, but there was a problem with it. The firearm was too long for the bag, so some twit cut off part of the stock. Still didn't fit, so they then cut off part of the barrel. By cutting off part of the barrel, they changed it from a semi-automatic to a single shot. The automatic firing didn't work. That's done by the gas blowback. And it also made the firearm extremely susceptible to jamming. So he's going around trying to shoot people, and he ejects more rounds than he actually fires, and he's yelling out in his state, "How do they expect me to kill people with this gun?"
And how do you know that? Who reported that?
It's stated in the mass shootings thing written by Mullins, Alpers, and.
So he was totally set up for that as well. Paul Mullen oversaw him. Paul Mullen, the psychiatrist, oversaw Bryant. and he also oversaw Julian Knight, and he also oversaw the shooter in Aratoa in New Zealand.
Yeah. Yes, he was residing out there at the time.
Atarea? I can't say it. I can't remember the name of the place.
Aramotama or something. No, it doesn't matter.
Aramona.
The police took 30 hours to find the gunman and shoot him, and then he bled to death. They put the little thumb handcuffs on him behind his back, and he broke two of them, so they had to put proper handcuffs on him, and he still bled to death. They weren't interested in saving him. It's very interesting, and that particular incident with the New Zealand, the armed robbery squad, I think it was, specials, they were being led by a special operations group policeman, sergeant from Tasmania, Sergeant Michael Charles Dyson.
Ah, yes.
He was in Aramatana. Yeah, he was over there as well.
So Dyson might have been practicing at that one for what was coming up sooner at Port Arthur.
Practicing for that one. He was running. So that tells you that these things, not only were they run out of Canberra, but also that New Zealand were also involved in it. So you've got Julian Knight suffered from psychosis. He suffers from schizophrenia. Frank Vilovich from the Queen Street Massacre also started coming down and had started having schizophrenic events. But that's not reported.
Yeah.
Frank Vick. Then you've got Wade Frankham at Strathfield. And that's extremely interesting because he went in there with a big knife and he stabbed a couple of schoolgirls. He started stabbing one and a friend jumped in to try and help her, and he then stabbed her and the knife got stuck in her ribs and she died. So after doing that, he then went out, pulled out the rifle. It might have been an M1, I'm not too certain. Started shooting people. He then, when he finished, he then went out to the car park attached to the plaza and got into a car driven by a little old lady. Have you ever been at a shopping centre, driven your car there? You drive your car in, and the first thing you do, before you get there, is lock all the doors, then you get out and you lock the door. You understand? No. When you get back in the car, into the car, you unlock the driver's door. You might also unlock the boot to put your shopping in the boot, but you unlock the driver's door. The other three doors are still locked. You understand?
Yeah.
So this little old lady is driving out, and there's Wade Frankham standing there with a gun in his hand. She stops. He gets into the front passenger door. He has a few words to her, says he's sorry. He then gets out of the car and blows his brains out. Not very nice. That's very, very...
So she might have been a mind controller, a programmer, and she said to kill yourself.
His job.
Pardon?
What was the little old lady's job?
To tell him to kill himself.
No, she was a detective constable. And when they had a debate on the ABC, who did she sit in front of?
No idea. Him.
Becca Peters.
The gun control advocate from the United States who came out and worked on Port Arthur.
She's a detective. She's a detective constable, right? What's the first thing you taught in your police training before they put you out on the street?
I had no idea.
A self-preservation. One of the things you learn, as a policeman, before you even get out on the street, is that if you're in a car and somebody's armed there or attacks you, Now, even if you're only doing 15 miles an hour, what you simply do is you put one foot on the clutch, and then you work the other foot on the brake as hard as you can. The person who's attacking you or sitting next to you on that goes through the front windscreen.
Right.
The little old lady's Wade Frankham in with his gun, get into his car, she has worked with him, so she is actually controlling him. She's controlled him, and she's given him the thing to go out and blow his brains out.
Yes, like some suicide key.
Yes. So that's stressful. And it just, there's other little things that come on and, it tells you things.
Did you ever read the work of David McGowan? He wrote Programmed to Kill.
No.
It's a free book. It's a free PDF. It's available. He died of cancer in about 2015, I think. But he was an amazing researcher, and he linked almost all of the famous mass murders and serial killers in the last 40 years in America, and even some, I think, in Australia he talked about, with mind control and being operated. That all of these, like the Son of Sam, or like the alphabet killer, the granny killer, this killer, that killer. Like when he started to investigate them, every single one, it turned out, was like a mind control experiment for these high up people. It's amazing. It's such an interesting book. But
It would. No, it would be, but I'm trying to lead a normal life.
Yeah, I understand. I get that way myself sometimes.
Yes. So you have a look at Port Arthur. You've got Karen and Rob Atkins. You've also got Maureen and John Mason, who go to the
interesting name.
Interesting
name, Mason. It's probably their
Mason.
Yes.
Mason. Yes. So so that they left Seascape Cottage and they drove back to Hobart to the airport. Whatever. So you say, why did they do that? You then realise that the people running this, they needed their own witnesses to verify certain events. They couldn't trust the general public, so they had to create their own.
Yes.
And then you suddenly realise there's over 30 intelligence operatives at Port Arthur on the day.
Yes. Amongst others, like Justin Noble, the guy from the Bureau of Criminal Investigations. Why?
BCI.
How did he get there so quickly on the day? Why is
he was there. He was there supposedly.
I've seen him in a daylight photo. And apparently no police got to the site until 6:30.
No, I think the first police that arrived there, one was
2:30. One ambulance came or something.
4:30, the first policeman got in, and they dropped him off, and the police car skedaddled and left him there by himself. He ended up having to retire ill health. Then they dropped in helicopters forward and dropped in two little policewomen, and they had to go up and guard the bodies of the mother and the two girls that had been shot, to make sure that the Tasmanian devils didn't attack the bodies.
Oh, God. That was well thought out in advance, wasn't it? What a disgusting...
Well, again, the original plan called for the tourists to be on the ferry to Dundee.
Yes.
And to be shot at the Isle of the Dead, and then the ferry would be take off and land at the little jetty at the side of Seascape Cottage. But since the ferry's timetable had changed, they couldn't use that plan, so they went to Plan B. And everything went run amok from that thing. It just totally out of everything went wrong. As I said, they lost 7 of the operatives were amongst the victims.
Which makes you wonder, were they deliberately disposing of their own agents at the event, or was the guy who was the actual shooter, was he pissed off by them on the day for some reason, or did he have earlier gripes with them?
No. We're told by one of the witnesses, was it Rebecca McKinn, was when he was sitting down the table having his meal and drinking it, he kept mumbling to himself. I could hear him mumbling.
Yeah.
That simply means he's got a throat mic on and he's got an earplug. He's talking to somebody,
right,
and he's getting instructions.
Yeah.
Now, when he's driving his little Volvo up the hill, the yellow Volvo, he sees the Mikacs playing. He reports that, and he's told to get out and shoot them. He's got a mother and 2 daughters. So he's instructed by the person who's running him to shoot Mrs. Mikac and her 2 daughters. That's a specific instruction. Then, when he gets to the toll booth, he has to swap. He has to leave the Volvo there, so he's got to grab the other car with the Volvo, the BMW, the gold BMW that's driven. The woman who owns it, there's a Jewish couple in the back, and the Queenslander who's driving it. And so the Jewish couple get out, and they get into the Volvo, and then they suddenly think, hang on, if we go into the Volvo, the says, how are we going to get out of there? So the husband gets out and starts saying, what's going on? The guy shoots him. Well, once he shoots him, he has to shoot the other 3. And the other 3 just, what's going on? What's going on?
Yeah.
And the driver the whole time sitting in the BMW, and he sees, he sees the 2 killed. He then gets out, goes out, he's shot, and then, Rose Nixon, I think her name was, she's pulled out the car and shot as well. So they all knew that they weren't frightened of the gun, even though he witnessed him killing the Mikacs. They're not frightened of him.
Yes, so they were involved. They were,
be involved. Be aware of what was going on.
And they thought he had instructions to not kill them, and then when he did, that was a big surprise, and probably a little bit of karma.
A lot of karma.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't let them go. He could not let them go. They had to die. And the person who was receiving the instructions from, afterwards drove down in a black little van that's parked there. And as someone said, that's an SOG van. So it's got all the radio equipment and that in the back. And who was driving that? Bars.
Who?
Because people show bars because they've got pictures.
You've got what?
Just do that. These pictures were taken by another spook of the 3 having a meeting.
Yes.
On the balcony of the Broad Arrow Cafe.
But how does that link Viles to driving the black truck?
Well, how did he get there?
I don't know.
Because
it could have been him. It could have been someone else.
No, because this also leaves a cottage.
Who leaves?
So the first.
Sorry, that you just broke up there.
All right. Witnesses, the first after our chief gets and Mittens each up at Porter. So who drove it? Escape Cottage to Porter. It had to be somebody involved and had to be somebody in charge of part of the operation. So you have the 3 meeting on the balcony. The first one we identify is wearing white mullets. That's Hans Overbeek, or Johannes Overbeek. The second one I identify, it has to be the policeman who's there. It has to be from the abandoned here back. So that's Justin Mark Noble. So who's the third one smoking the cigarette? So that's Joe Viles. How did he get there? Well, there's the black van there now, but wasn't there 30 minutes ago. And it was even checked in going through the toll gate after all the shooting. So that and once you identified Joe Viles on the balcony, you've got the person who ran the event.
Yes, it certainly looks like those three had something to do. Justin Noble, Joe Viles, and Hans Overbeek were definitely sort of, to my mind, from what I've seen over the years, they look like they could have been not the ultimate planners, but definitely the overseers on the day. And especially Hans Overbeek, the father of Benjamin. Benjamin Overbeek, he is photographed in the front of an ambulance, leaving the Seascape Cottage with Martin Bryant in the back. When do you ever put somebody in the front of an ambulance?
No.
No?
He's in the front of the ambulance. He's in Seascape Cottage.
I don't know where that ambulance is. It could be at Port Arthur. But I've just seen a photo of what you have told me is Benjamin Overbeek in the front of an ambulance in all camo gear, and the look on his face says a lot.
Right. That video was shot at the Royal Hospital.
All right. It was Channel 7 video or Channel 9 TV station maybe.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so that was when the ambulance arrived at hospital. Was that the ambulance with Martin Bryant in it? Yes.
Yes.
And Hans Overbeek's son just happened to be with the military that was working there on the day.
No, with the police.
Oh, so he's with the police wearing camo.
The Tasmania police wore black. The Victoria police, who were sent out and were expected to relieve the Tasmania police, wore camouflage. So he's dressed up as a Victoria policeman.
Right. What do you think of the look on his face in that photo of him in the front of the ambulance? Does it look like somebody who's just shot
well, it's
50 people?
He's looking,
Yeah.
Please don't. And there's another photo that we have put out. You can see him walking away from the ambulance. There's another one of him that was taken some time ago, and Stuart Beattie had pulled that one out and had it saved somewhere. I
would like to see that. There's one thing it reminds me of. It's something in his eyes, and it's a couple of years ago I grabbed hold of a lampshade, a metal lampshade that had faulty wiring, and it gave me a shock so intense, and I couldn't let go of the lampshade, and it kept pumping the electricity of the whole house through me. And my eyes, I just remember they were like wildly big, and that is the sort of feeling I get when I look at that photo of Benjamin Overbeek in that ambulance. He's just been electrified by something.
The interesting thing about how we got that video, or that photograph, was it didn't come out with the original news. It only came out after Carleen Bryant had written her book, and she was being interviewed by Channel 9 in regard to that book. So somebody then went to the archives and pulled out, and part of it, we had this video which we had never seen before, and there was a person in the front of the ambulance who should not have been there.
Very interesting. Very interesting how little by little the pieces come out, and we can judge our fellow Australians by their willingness to look or not look. Sometimes I think, because people are just so arrogant and ignorant to keep their heads in the sand with such an event like this, especially now that 25 years later they're doing things to people in your state which could very easily make you homicidal, but you no longer have access to guns.
Oh, yes. Well, you see, you could oppose police. Wouldn't be very efficient, but you could oppose them, or somebody could decide to get out and fix Daniel Andrews up. Chairman Dan, or Dopey Dan, whatever you want to call him.
I cannot believe that there haven't been cop killings already. I cannot believe that nobody's egged that friggin' troglodyte. What is wrong with the people? What is wrong with the men of the country? They can't pull down these evil dickheads.
Well, most people still watch television and believe what they see.
And they're Agent Smith. They all turn into Agent Smith because they need the dollars.
No. Most people in Victoria now are waking up that it's bullshit. They do not know how to overcome the bullshit.
No. None of us do anywhere in the world. Because so many of our neighbours have swallowed the bullshit.
Controlled. Now, people still trust the media. Even though they know it's lying, they still trust it to some degree. Right? And, yeah. I saw one thing on the news the other day, which I do believe, and it was Sky News, I think it was interviewing, or it was an interview of one of the police commissioners in regard to the police going around knocking on the doors of all these people who are supposed to be in isolation. And the policeman said, oh, look, the community, he said, they're doing a great job. The community is obeying the law. The communities, they're doing everything with it. And most of the people who weren't at home at the time we knocked had a legitimate excuse. Right? The police were telling the truth. They will often tell the truth. But in this particular, he was saying that the Victorians are all doing the right thing. Or 99% of them are.
They are.
Politicians are saying, "Oh, it's all the people's fault. They're not following the rules and regulations they want to do." No, they're not. The police have stated quite emphatically that most of the Victorians are doing the right thing.
No, they're all.
Dopey Dan's, they're not. Dopey Dan's lying to us, right? But everybody's believing, Dopey Dan wouldn't lie to us.
I can't believe the dumbness of the politicians there. That all of my so-called lefty old friends, oh my God, they are fawning over him like Hitler in 1938. It's just amazing to watch the statist attitude. It disgusts me. Now let's get on to that for a minute. What do you think about this idea that this protest that's going to be Australia-wide? For a start, what idiots. Like, you don't just protest for one day you protest all day, every day until it's over. You never stop telling people the truth, even if they don't want to hear it. But the protests have been infiltrated and moved. The Sydney protest, yes, it's been moved to the ANZ bloody Homebush. There's a
ASIO 1997.
ASIO what?
So the Age printed an article in 1997.
Yeah.
About how police will have been moving into all different little groups. You know this. So the ABC, say such and such street, say this. The police, all these little community groups, the police have been moving into.
Yes, they even infiltrated a little radio station, an independent radio station.
Taken over, and they will control the news of their agenda.
They had police working at this little radio station I worked at for 12 years as undercover radicals, so that they could sniff around the station and see who's doing what and who's saying what.
Yes. So Davey Dunn and all our politicians need an opposition. Mm-hmm. An opposition they can defeat. So they will create their opposition.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And if you join the opposition, they'll have your name, your telephone number, they'll have everything about you.
And then you go down to their protest, then they give you fines, then they bash you up, then they've got all the drama they want. But the thing is, you need to go to protests if you want, but stay at the back. And you don't let yourself be trampled by a horse. But the thing is, protest every minute of every day. Take your mask off, for God's sake. Go around without a mask. If you absolutely must have it to go and get yourself some food, put it on for 10 minutes. But I haven't worn a mask in 6 months because I don't want to wear one. The police in the first 2 weeks stopped me, even around little suburban nowhere in the middle of Mexico. But after the first 2 weeks, they stopped because they know that's that crazy white chick and she doesn't have a mask.
She's too big she's too,
I am my own authority and I don't believe the bullshit. There's a friggin' fat idiot up the road, so unhealthy. And I was having a nice chat with him one day and he was like, you really should be wearing a mask. And I just said to him, I wish I'd been more diplomatic, but I just said to him, I don't believe a single thing my government has said since I was born 50 years ago. And he just looked at me like, oh my God, you're a bit weird. I was like, what? You're one of those people, like Andrew, like, come on, I don't know what you're going to react to this, but you know the moon landings are bullshit, right?
Of course. I've read Renee's book.
Well, yeah, good. I mean, anybody who thinks for 15 minutes can see through the moon landings, but most people won't think for 15 minutes.
All right, let's put it this way. Back in 1963...
Anyway, sorry, just to go back, my point is, if they'll lie to you about the moon landing, after you find that out, you don't take medical advice from these lying cocksuckers, Sorry.
1993, 95% of the people believed that Lee Harvey Oswald had shot Kennedy.
Yes, right.
Nowadays, about 5%, but only 5% people believe Kennedy was shot by Oswald. Everybody virtually knows it was a government-run operation.
Yes.
The moon landing, even I believed when I first saw it.
Yeah.
But then you start thinking about it, and you then study it a little bit and study what the Russians have been doing. You learn about the Van Allen belts and other little things, and you realise they can't do it.
If they had been to the moon in 1969, there would be a McDonald's drive-through up there by now.
I would have been there 20 years ago.
Exactly. Right. So that's what I mean. You have to be able to think for yourself.
They would all be speaking Russian because the Russians were leading the race.
Yes, yes, absolutely they were, in every aspect.
So,
and they've just beaten us to the first vaccine as well, thank God. I'd rather take a Russian vaccine than a Rupert Murdoch, Lachlan Murdoch, what's his name, that prick Malcolm Turnbull and his wife. Shoot me in the face before you give me one of their vaccines.
The most dangerous place in Australia?
No, who?
Halfway between a pile of money and Malcolm Turnbull.
Yeah. Hey, have you heard of Bill Heffernan's work trying to get... Bill Heffernan's a senator, and he's been trying for years to expose a covered-up list of parliamentary and police pedophiles, like very big names.
Oh, yes. I've only heard it mentioned once.
Well, there's some really interesting people trying to expose that, but something about the way they're exposing it. When somebody is, like, I've been trying to expose this Port Arthur thing with you, not with you, but alongside, with everybody I know for 20 years and 10 years on the internet. But I've always been scared. I'm always scared of who might I be offending. And I know these people are really sick fuckers. So, it's always made me a little wary, at least, even though I don't feel like that can stop me. It's a true emotion that I do experience while I am doing what I'm doing. But then you got people like, there's a woman called Karen Brewer doing amazing work on exposing the Freemason network in Australia. All of the nepotism in that network and the families, and Bill Heffernan has been trying to expose all of these pedophiles that, includes like ex-prime ministers. It's got like high up names.
Wasn't there a judge that committed, a New South Wales judge who committed suicide after Heffernan named him?
Yes, I do recall something like that, but I can't recall who it was.
No, I don't come from New South Wales, so yes. But, yes,
there's a 90-year suppression order on this information anyway. And Karen Brewer is this woman who's doing this amazing job exposing it. But I look at her and she's there saying, filthy, demon network, blah, blah, blah. And I think she doesn't have any fear, and that's okay. Maybe she's close to God and fearless like I want to be, like we all want to be. But maybe she's controlled opposition, releasing it in limited amounts, letting off the steam of the masses. These are all the things we have to scrutinize, all the information. And this is the way they freaking control us all.
Yes. We'll do the job. You just sit back and relax. Give us any information you have, and we'll do the job for you.
And what's more, give us some donations. Give us all your energy. Give us all your love and goodwill. Give us all your donations. We'll take care of it. We'll make sure it gets to the people, like all the fire victims or all of the pedophile victims or whatever. No, nobody ever gets the money. The money gets stolen. I've worked for several, world changers who've all stolen the money. Oh, God, there's people right now just digging their little greedy mitts, trying to get donations for their causes in all different countries by talking about what's going on in Victoria. They make me sick. And nobody can see through them. Everybody's like, oh, they're so brave. And it's like, it irritates me so much because I was one of those useful idiots. And I still probably am. Might be even right now talking to you. None of us know.
Were you in Melbourne 30 years ago?
No, I was there from 94 to 2003. So 25 years ago, yeah.
There was a policeman killed on the front of the Flinders Street railway station about that time. A schizophrenic took him in sleep slit his throat with a knife. He died. Horrible, horrible event. So everybody's extremely upset, and a lot of people start making donations. And my friend Bill Wallace, who was in the same police station as this person who's killed, the city traffic, he's put in charge of collecting the and running the thing for the donations. So he ran it for about 6 months. And the money, because it was taken in by police, had to go into the public servants, government. So there was a lot. There's over $1 million, I think, collected.
Wow.
All held in trust for the widow, for her, and for the children. So 12 months later, the widow gets in contact with the police. It's right on a letter. Can you please help me? I need some money to pay for the children's schooling. The bureaucracy that held the money in trust was refusing to give her any of the money that had been donated for her.
Yeah, I bet it's...
Remember the Bali bombing?
Yes.
Red Cross collected over $3 million for the victims.
Yeah.
I've been five. A couple of years later, they're still holding on to $3 million of that money in case they need it.
What about the fire victims? The same thing.
Yes, right? So
I don't ever give to big charities. I give to people directly, hand to hand, in their hand.
That is a very good advice.
Yeah. Now, they're all the worst people in the world. This is what pisses me off the most, Andrew. This is why I am in a 2-month Facebook in the whole jail right now. Not for the meme that I posted, but because when some trolling agent came onto my page to tell me that I was wrong and that COVID-19 is very serious, I called him out as an agent and I said, how does it feel to sell yourself out against the whole of humanity? Because, I hate murderers, but what I hate even more than murderers is murderers who pretend they're not murderers, or thieves who act like your friend and then they steal from you. People who lie to your face and do something else, that's even worse to me. So that's something I've always...
Our politicians.
Yes, exactly that.
Sure.
But that's why these crisis actors piss me off. That's why I get so pissed off and don't follow any leaders in the thought movements, particularly, especially if they ever tell me any lies. If I can find out anything that they've said that I can later prove to be untrue, then I can confront them about it. And if they can explain to me, I used to think this and now I think this, and that's fine. We all change our opinions. Yes. But it's very different to be a liar, right?
Well, if you read our media today, you'll find there's lots of stories about, about the police doing this and the police doing that. And I looked at one when it first came up, and I wrote to the Minister for Police, Lisa Neville, and saying, well, this story can't be factual because that's not us. And one of her little office staff got back to me, and nothing happened. So what I'm finding is our media today are telling us tall tales, and none of them true in regard to police actions, deaths, and everything else.
Totally useless.
They're not telling us about the suicides.
No, of course not. They want us to die.
But you now see the ads on television, who are out there to help those who are mentally affected by the lockdown.
That's just a way to collect victims. That's just a way to suck in vulnerable people so that they can get them into their system, drug them, kill them, do whatever they want, rape them if they can use them in one of those programs, rape their kids if they can use them.
Apparently, there's been over 1,000 suicides in Australia in regard to COVID-19.
No, I wouldn't be
So
surprised. I'd be freaking killing myself if I was there.
as people who've died from COVID-19.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't
That's
be.
it.
It's incredibly. It's breaking me, and I'm a very strong person, and I've got friends, and I've still got people to hug. But I don't understand how all these other people have gone so long. Like just today, I was thinking how much money I've missed out on this year in not working normally. In not doing my normal thing. Who's going to ever repay all of us? And that's just one way of hurting us. The people out there who've got can't get access to the foods they need, the medicines they need, the hugs, the friends.
Well, just remember, months ago, one of the things Dopey Dan did was decide that certainly there are certain high-rise buildings in Melbourne.
Oh, disgusting.
And he shut them down. Nobody was allowed to leave.
Yes, I saw that. It was absolutely...
2 or 3 days. And then it stopped, right? But they are virtually concentration. They're not even prison camps. They're concentration camps. They're designed to kill people.
They're worse than concentration camps because in concentration camps you could watch movies, you could play sports. They had a swimming pool in some concentration camps. Concentration camps, sure that you got... The thing about concentration camps is you could go outside. These people in those high-rises didn't know it was only going to be 9 days. They were told 2 weeks, and they shat their pants successfully enough that they got out earlier. But they couldn't even open the windows more than a few inches. It's absolutely torturing people to not let them breathe fresh air. And people act like, I'm a whinger for complaining about that. All the Victorian people I know are like, oh, we've got to stay safe from the COVID. You've got to lock these germy, dirty, poor people up, basically is what they're saying. Frickin' hell, it's so annoying. People are so dumb.
Right. No, it's all right to lock them up, but I'm good. I've got news for you. I'm good.
Yeah, you're going to be... Yeah, the frickin' virtue signalers, exactly. All the people who were putting on their masks and dobbing on everyone else 6 to 8 months ago here, they have shut the fuck up in the last 2 months, let me tell you. They're no longer all enthusiastic and wearing masks to match their T-shirts. Now they're starting to realise this isn't as fun as we first thought. This isn't a game anymore. Their businesses are being destroyed. Their lifetimes, their kids are getting fucked in the head. And these people, they still are not aware. They are still not aware that even by taking the hand sanitizer, hormone-disrupting, cancer-causing gel, wearing the mask everywhere, letting them shoot you in the head with the temperature gun, these people still don't even realize that yet. That they are contributing to all of our downfall and enslavement by just doing the right thing. Fuck being obedient. I'm sick of them. Obedience is the biggest problem. Who was that who made that great quote? Civil obedience, civil disobedience is not our problem. Civil obedience is our problem.
Yes. Can you remember the old line of how can you tell when a politician's lying?
His lips are moving.
Yes. So we all know that politicians lie.
Yeah.
So why do we believe them?
I don't. This is why I've got no friends, because everybody believes any external authority besides themselves. And then they call me mad, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so cool being over here being me, let me tell you. Thinking for myself, it's so blissful.
Yes. Well, I can remember back in 1987 talking with my friend Tom, trying to figure out where we could escape to because Australia was stuffed.
So this is what I want to ask you.
1987, I realised that, John came to Victoria was stuffed. Where could we escape to? I was thinking possibly Fiji, but I don't know these days.
Mexico. Mexico is good. Mexico is good because there's a high level of anarchy here. Because there is a lot of cartel action in competition or in cahoots with government. Whereas in Australia, it's the monopolisation that's the problem. And everybody's brain fucked to think that the government helps you in Australia. Anyway, Andrew, so why haven't you left? You told me 20 years ago they're bringing martial law into the streets of the first world nations. Now that made me frickin' leave the country. That's made me get out of Australia. Because I knew something big was coming because I saw those dead bodies in the cafe. And I knew the government doesn't do shit like this to disarm the nation for no reason. Somebody coming up in the next few years, and it's not left or right, it's somebody who is beyond either side of government because they plan it 20 years in advance. You have no idea who's going to be governing. In fact, why isn't there anarchy? This shit turned me into an anarchist. I can't pay taxes to a government that shoots its own people in the face. I can't comply. I can't even pay parking fines or road tolls or speeding fines to a government that shoots people in the face. My soul wouldn't let me. And why aren't more people able to take that stand? I had to get out of the freaking country because I couldn't stand the fact of knowing that sooner or later they were going to come for me for not paying taxes, for speaking the truth, that they was going to end up in a mental institution or a prison.
Well,
why do you not worry for yourself? Yeah, you got news? Good, tell me.
The taxation department is not half as good as what they think they are. And there'll be a lot of people who don't pay their taxes or whatever, avoid paying their taxes. And because they're so small and that, they'll very rarely get caught.
I decided when I was 18 years old, why would I involve somebody else in my intricate dealings with humans? Why do I have to give them, I could see through so early on that I knew, probably until I was 21 or 25, I had a tax file number, but I never made enough money to pay tax. But the way I pay tax, even up until today, I give voluntary donations to people who come in front of me, who need it, who put their hand out. And I also still need help. I'm putting my hand out for my people who can help me. We're all at one position or another. If I still lived in Australia, I'd be accepting government handouts. I would. Because for one, I think they're criminals and you should get anything you can off them. But two, I know that it broke me to take money off my government. It made me dependent on them. And this dickhead up the road here, pardon?
Not only that, but do you see how much you have to suffer to get the pittance?
Yes. And they treat you like shit. When you're in the office waiting for them, they treat you like a piece of dog shit. Absolutely. I know it. I knew it for decades. And I feel so sorry for my friends still living there who think it's better to get $350 a week and have someone shit in your mouth than to go somewhere and work really, really hard for $12 for an 8-hour day. See, for me now, I tell you, I would prefer to work $12 for an 8-hour day than take $350 to sit on my ass in Australia and watch TV from the government. Because I've learnt the hard way. It sucks being owned, especially being a prostitute for such a small amount.
Yes, well,
I don't mean to make you feel nervous discussing all this shit while you're still in the belly of the beast. But I appreciate you talking to me. I appreciate you putting your head on camera. I'd really like to keep talking to you, but it's already been going 1 hour and 40 minutes.
50, actually.
So do you want to have a rest and talk again at another time, or?
So, but the problem is we didn't cover too much today.
Well, we didn't, but in some ways, by allowing ourselves to go off on the segues, we uncover things that we don't expect is going to come out.
Yes. But it's going to be interesting. Australia, my friend Terry Schultz, the barrister from Sydney, an American, he was in Vietnam War, helicopter pilot. He did 2 things in Vietnam, came out here, and immediately lost his AR-15. But he stated years ago that they frequently use Australia as a testing ground.
Yes.
Or should I say, America uses Australia as a testing ground.
United Nations, even.
Oh, please. Who set up the United Nations? And please remember, Rockefeller donated New York, right? The Rockefeller Medical Institute, who invented the vaccines that created the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic, and they're also going through what's happening now with Bill Gates and co. Very, very interesting. Study history. It will tell you a lot.
Yes. I can't believe even my own parents who know history can't see what's happening to them right now. I'm like, what I'm seeing is I'm finally understanding how nobody knew what the frig was going on in the Second World War. I remember saying to my mum when I was a little child, why did all those people get on the trains and go into the prison camps? And she sort of didn't have a good answer for me.
No.
Today, all my friends would be getting on those trains and going into those camps.
They were ordered to. They were ordered, and so they did. They're good Germans.
Yes.
But not all.
Well, now people are being ordered to wear a mask, and in months ahead, people will be ordered to take a vaccine, and then after that, they will be ordered to take a microchip.
In Australia, it's going to be a little bit difficult because our constitution states quite emphatically you cannot force vaccinations upon us.
Yeah. Well, didn't the United Nations start the Charter of Human Rights? Aren't that the people who are trying to vaccinate us?
Started Charter of Human Rights. Good heavens above, no. I think the rights of man first came in with the Irish thing back in France with their revolution. After the glorious revolution in England, they had the 1688 Bill of Rights. But of course, none of them are relevant to us human beings unless it's useful for the government.
Well, Magna Carta's still relevant, isn't it?
Only if the government wishes it to be so.
Yeah.
So, just keep your head low.
It's easy for you to say as I'm giving you a Skype interview right now, and we're about, we don't have to put this stuff on the internet. I'm happy to just talk to you and keep it as an archive of information, because we sort of aren't getting anywhere at the same time as we are trying to expose things. But I also do want to put it on the public record. The last video that we made last week, it had 30 views. Now, it is a channel of mine that has no subscribers, but it's just very interesting, isn't it, that nobody finds us interesting. So I don't really feel like I need to put my head low. I feel like my head's already low. Like I am quite under the radar, but it's because they don't promote real truth tellers. They only promote people who they can control.
And people who are telling their story.
Yeah.
It's extremely interesting when you find out you've got the story, you know the truth. You're going to go out there and push the story of truth. People come along to help you. And then all of a sudden you find out the people who are helping you are not helping you at all.
Yes.
They're controlling you.
Or they're screwing things up, they're making the money go missing, they're fucking up messages between people, they're bitching about people behind people's backs, and they are masters of this stuff.
They've been doing that for 2,000, 4,000 years. Look at it, but they were doing it back in Mesopotamia. Yes, so people get quite efficient at doing certain things and behaving in certain manners. But then you also find people that can sometimes also be on your side.
Yeah, I like to...
What I have found is people were telling me years ago, this is especially for the Jews, you can't trust the Jews, blah, blah, blah. But you suddenly find that there's a lot of Jews on your side.
Oh, yeah, there's many. I mean, the best...
They believe as you do, and they are well aware of, their 1 or 2%, of Jewish. But
I've met a
major problem are the subservients to them.
Yes.
The ones who
Yes, I have met a lot of Jewish people since I've lived outside of Australia. I even had a boyfriend when I was inside Australia who was Jewish for a while, and I didn't know anything about the Jewish religion or politics or anything back when I dated him. But since I've been outside Australia, I've learnt a lot by meeting a lot of Jewish people, and 1 in 30 or 1 in 40 of them is smart enough, switched on enough, and clued up on enough history to be able to speak out about their government, the same way I speak out about my Australian government. And I really appreciate meeting those Jewish people, because a lot of other Jewish people, because they come from this tiny minority, they do tend to sort of support each other no matter what. I'm one of those people, I'm like, I'll support you up until the point where you're not a good person or you're not honest with me or others, and then I'm not interested anymore. Some people...
Read an article by Michael Hoffman. He's written a couple of good. He is an exceptionally intelligent and informative person, and he's Jewish.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't like what's happening to the world today, and I bet you there's a lot of people. When Tehran, 20 years ago, held their talks in regard to the Holocaust, and Frederick Tobin went over there. When he came back, he said there were Jews over there as well, religious Jews, who were also arguing that what is happening at the moment is totally against their religion.
Yeah. Yeah. There's factions. There's factions of everything. Yeah.
But just be careful which one our opponent goes to, or yes, a few of the others, because yes, they're not real good. Anyway, look, it's 6:00.
Yes, you must go and have dinner.
Yes, I should have some tea. I don't know what my wife is doing, but I can't hear her working in the kitchen, so I think she might be working out in the garage making face masks.
Oh, God, whatever. Good. I'm glad to hear somebody's making a buck.
Oh, it goes against my integrity.
Yeah, I understand.
Because I have no thing in face masks at all, except they're a beautiful thing if you're going in to rob a bank.
Yes.
Or to protest in America.
It must be very difficult when you're in a long-term relationship and your ideals clash.
No, it's not difficult at all. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. You have nobody. She's the boss.
That's why I've never been married. It's too difficult.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, let's talk again sometime, if you don't mind.
Oh, we can. My wife, she said always let me get in and do my work in Port Arthur, and she wasn't concerned about it. As far as she's concerned, it was all hogwash. On the 20th anniversary of the Port Arthur Massacre, we were looking after a friend who had dementia, and she wanted to go to Port Arlington for a drive. So we got in the car, drove to Port Arlington, went into a little cafe. She took me to sit down. I ordered a cup of tea, cappuccino, and some cakes, and we sat down. And a gentleman came in and sat down at the table against the wall, facing me, looking at our table, and a person looking at me. So we sat there. We had our coffees and a cup of tea and the cake or whatever to go with it. We were there for 20 minutes. Then we got up to start to move, and he got up and moved out. And my wife turned around and said, "See that man there? He's been watching you the whole time he's been in." And I said, "Did you see the cup of coffee he had?" She said, "No." I said, "He didn't have one." She said, "He's been watching you." I said, "Yes." Right? Do you understand? For the first time, my wife suddenly realised that I was being watched.
Yeah.
And all these things that I've been saying
were
not so funny.
Yeah. Unbelievable that two people sharing a house, sharing a bed, whatever, can have such different stratospheres of focus. But I'm forever grateful for your input and your ability to show me a different way to look at this event. And I could probably spend many more years discussing it with you, picking it apart. So let's chat again sometime.
Who was it who said, with the things that you can alter, you alter. The things you can't, don't worry about them? Was it Kipling or somebody? There have been extremely wise moves or sayings put out over the years, things to let us know and to understand what being human really means.
Yeah.
You have a good night.
You too.
I'll catch you again.
Enjoy dinner, and I'll send you a message when I put this one up.
Right here. Take care. God bless.
Lovely chatting. Ciao, Andrew.
Ciao. Yes, all right. See you later. Bye.